The dust choked the air, swirling in the late afternoon sun. The sheriff hadn't spoken in days. He was tracking something older than guilt, something that cut deeper than any blade. His brother loomed like a specter, a figure smaller than life, clad in a black hooded cloak, cold as the steel he wielded. A hero born from stories, yet nowhere to be found when shadows lengthened. In the town square, the gallows stood ominously, its crossbeam worn by time, a mute witness to the bitter legacies of man. Beneath its swaying rope, a crowd murmured, eyes alight with the flickering embers of judgment. He could see the faces etched with curiosity, each one whispering sins wrought by hands that did not belong to them but to others. "He'll come," the deputy assured the sheriff, though his voice wavered under the weight of doubt. "What do they know of loyalty?" the sheriff replied, surveying the gathering crowd. "We fought side by side, and still they cast their stones." That day the sun burned low in the sky, illuminating not a hero, but a man broken and forsaken. As the murmur of the townsfolk rose, he could feel the icy caress of anticipation clutching at his heart. Each voice a reminder of the fate that awaited him, the rightful punishment for choices made far beyond the borders of this forsaken land. In the damp corners of his cell, sweat pooled beneath him, and the air reeked of decay. He crouched beside cold bars, fingertips brushing the iron. With every moment, the past coiled tighter around his throat. "Is it true what they say?" he ventured, voice rasping like dead leaves in a forgotten wind. The guard, his face grim and hollow, nodded slowly. "About your brother. He's a hero now. And I? Trapped in a noose of your own making," the guard replied, his glance a dart that pierced through his resolve. He leaned back, staring into the shadows, thoughts spiraling down the darkened well of regret. This cell believed in guilt, but guilt did not narrate the truth. He had turned. In the heat of battle, he had turned away to save a fallen comrade, and the price for that choice had grown into a palpable thing, a cancer gnawing at his name. The distant echo of horses filled the air as he remembered the battlefield, a desolate mess of blood and bone. The hot winds carried the scent of iron mingling with dust and despair. "Stand strong, we fight together," he had screamed, stirring the storm inside him, fighting alongside his brother. But the battle raged, misfortune cloaked in glory, and the moment he turned to save the wounded, he became a coward in the eyes of the world. "Stand, brother," shouted the figure against the horizon, sunlight tracing the contours of his resolute frame. "Where was your loyalty?" echoed in his mind, a phrase that clawed at his insides, wrapped around the heart of his grief, the sacrifice that twisted their bond. As the sun dipped low, he fell further into the clarity of memory and chaos. The night had swallowed more than men. It had swallowed promises hard as iron, mottled like a weathered horse's flank. In the tavern, where shadows danced under low-hanging lights, he had heard whispers. "What'll it be?" The bartender's voice was gravel, a narrator of endless tales. "Tooth and a drink," he had offered, with the shadow of hope flickering dimly. "Truth don't pour like whiskey," the bartender replied, though truth felt heavier than any bottle, promising a deeper wounding. As he sipped his drink, he watched the patrons' faces sunken like old bones, each bearing the weight of secrets. "Pour me your lies," he murmured, aware of the paradox. They each carried weights that strung tighter around their necks. Time, it seemed, taught lessons through burden and silence, threading pain into the very fabric of existence. Every drop of whiskey echoed the refrain of betrayal. All around him, hope dissipated. The line between loyalty and survival blurred in the shadows cast by flickering candles. He could feel a darkness creeping closer, a memory unearthing itself from beneath layers of time. The day of judgment dawned, painted in burnt orange, heavy with anticipation. The gallows loomed like a scorned lover, waiting not for affection but for retribution. He stood there, stark against the shadowed sky, shackles biting into flesh tight as fear. "A sinner must face judgment," the preacher intoned, his voice raspy as autumn leaves crunching underfoot. "Not all sins bleed the same," he managed to choke out, though doubt clouded his heart, tethering him to cowardice. He felt the presence of the executioner, a shroud that swallowed light, announcing his arrival with every creaking step. The moment was surreal, lost in the cacophony of voices pleading. The townsfolk had come to wrap themselves in the warmth of false righteousness. When the black hood finally fell, the familiarity brought dread coursing through his veins. His brother, the one he had fought and bled beside, the one who had entered the fray without questioning the shadows, now stood before him, enshrouded in darkness. "Is this what you've come to?" he croaked, desperate for a glimpse through that veil, a sign of the bond they once shared. "An act of obedience," was the cold reply. And in that moment, their shared silence bore a heavier weight than any word could summon. Fists clenched tightly against the fabric of resolve, the man inside still felt the ghost of hope risen, only to be crushed under the weight of his brother's decision. Time slowed, the stillness reeking of desperation, and he sensed the world folding into itself. Not just bodies, but souls, entangled in moments lost forever beneath the desert sky. The crowd gasped for breath as he stood upon the gallows, painted in hues of dusk, when the sun bled into darkness. He could feel the noose against his neck, but not the killing blow. It hung there, suspended, waiting for the judgment of hands that had once clasped in brotherhood. Yet hope flared one last time as the executioner lifted the axe. With careful precision, he brought it down, deep into the flesh of narratives, unresolved. Not for a moment, but as an eternity unraveled. And in that time, he saw something shift in the figure shrouded in black. He remembered the warmth of laughter and splashes of love, seeds of trust sown in childhood dreams. The axe fell, merciless, yet did not strike. Instead, an unseen hand intervened, flipping fate's script with violence and merciful care. In the silence that followed, he found new life, a heart pulse still beating after the chaos had subsided. Someone had plucked him from the abyss, driven by chance rather than law, and in their embrace of salvation they had given him new purpose. Yet the cost lingered like blood-stained rain, not the life spared, but the life defined by unfulfilled pacts. Out of the chains of the execution, he waded into the wilderness, where broken promises met the lie of redemption. But the past never left him. It clawed him from within, stitching shadows deep inside his skin. Haunted by specters that washed their hands in icy water, he felt the scars shaping him, leading him back to that murky path. Every night echoed with the specter of his brother, scrubbing furiously, bloody hands wrestling with redemption under cold cleansing. "Can you still see me?" he whispered into the void, yet each night carried no reply, only the reflection of a man undone. When he journeyed back to the town, memories unfurled. Every shadow whispered the past into presence. They greeted him with whispers, questions of an unwritten saga. He wandered the familiar pathways, heavy with echoes, still searching for the brother who had once fought by his side. "What do you seek?" a townsman asked, discomfort etched across a sunken face. He felt the judgment in their eyes, bearing down like the sun at noon. Redemption, he gave back, yet it felt empty, a beggar at the threshold of an unopened door. "This town is stained too deep," the townsman murmured, leaving him with the pall of silence. But the silence buzzed loudly with familiar pain, digging into him like the heat of a summer sun. The horizon stretched before him, a canvas of broken dreams and unshed tears. He recalled the brother he had walked beside, thought of how close they had come to destroying each other within a single hour. As he turned away from memories layered in blood, he felt the chill grasp at his heart like a thief in the night. Together they had faced the storm. Now they were both but ghosts of what they had been. Torn between loyalty and despair, he realized there would be no easy absolution. This town had witnessed blood, and with it, it had buried treachery and courage alike. And as he walked along the streets, the sun dipped behind the mountains, painting a landscape that mirrored his soul. If you've wandered these stories and feel the weight of history between your bones, subscribe to Medieval Stories and join us as we unravel tales of love, loss, and the haunting echoes of the past. He lingered at the tavern's entrance, shadows casting long behind him like a lingering regret. The warm light spilled out like an invitation, yet he was a specter, just a breath away from oblivion. Inside, faces turned, then turned back, whispers fluttering through the air like dry leaves brushing the ground. "What do you want here?" spat a man leaning against the bar, his voice thick with disdain. "Answers," came the weary reply, though part of him knew no answer would soothe the ache within. "Answers? You think you deserve them after what you've done?" "After what we've both done, perhaps," he shot back, measuring every word like gunpowder, ready to ignite conflict. Silence fell, thick and heavy, and the bartender poured a drink with deliberate slowness. Glass clinked against wood, echoing a discontent that felt familiar. Time lingered in the air, thickening with tension, and uneasiness hung heavily, festering like an untreated wound. "Face it," said a woman from the rear, her voice trembling yet unwavering. "You're a ghost here. The town doesn't forget why you linger in the memories." He glanced around, catching the eyes of those he once knew. None met his gaze fully, all were plagued by the weight of the past. "Maybe I'm here to change that." "Change?" a man barked derisively. "Can ghosts change? You can't wash blood from your hands, wanderer." Each word threatened to pull him back into a place of despair. Memories surged. He saw his brother's face vividly, then emptying as though light itself consumed him whole. The executioner had been an executioner of dreams, a shroud cloaking what remained. And like every drunkard in the tavern, his brother carried that burden too. "So, what's it going to be? You feel remorse now?" the bartender asked, leaning over the bar top, eyes narrowed with contempt. "Remorse isn't enough," he sighed, more a gasp than a confession. "But walking away isn't an option." The weight of their scrutiny fell heavy. Questions danced around him, spoken and unspoken. Daggered looks and glares of accusation were like shackles on his limbs. He fought to breathe, fought against the flood of memories roaring as waves in his mind. In the corners, voices rose in challenge, asking if redemption was ever possible when blood had stained the earth and words had severed bonds. Shadows from the past whispered truths in his ears, truths he wished to flee but could not outrun. And just like that day on the battlefield, fear murmured sweetly, tempting him to surrender. Instead, he stepped forward, bold against a trembling heart, desperate to untangle the mess he had made. "I want to speak to him," he declared suddenly. "I know he's here." "Why? And why would he do the same for you?"
The bartender's tone turned the air thick with disdain.
You think he'll hear you? Or will you only hear the ghosts of your own making? Maybe it's time to face the ghosts, he breathed, resignation curling around hope like smoke. The bartender shrugged, wiping the spill on the counter as if the past could be erased with a mere flick of the cloth. You'll likely find more than echoes. In the clenching pit of his stomach, he felt an unexplainable pull, urging him toward the door. He pushed through the crowd, their eyes boring into him like the heat of an inferno. Outside, the sun kissed the horizon goodbye, blazing a crimson trail on the bruised earth. He took a deep breath, the air heavy with dust and despair. Each step crunched bones buried long ago, remnants of a time when blood had not yet laid claim to either of them. The small town around him reflected his inner turmoil, an endless loop of anger and sorrow woven together into the tapestry of existence. As darkness whispered promises in the distance, he made his way to the old encampment where tents lay abandoned, not by choice but by loss. Shadows danced in the flickering light of dying campfires, a tapestry woven with forgotten stories, the last rites of heroes. Somewhere within that mesh of memory, his brother was waiting for the moon to unveil truths buried behind darkened hearts. The night thickened as he approached, quiet and still, with only the farewells of fading light sharing the warmth of yesterday. And there he was, sword sheathed and hood lifted, a ghost forged in the flames of their former lives. "Brother," came the whisper, a tremor shaking the words on their way out, caught between time and torment. "You shouldn't be here," the figure murmured, voice gravelly yet familiar. "I came to face you, and face what lies between us," he said, each syllable a step toward redemption, or perhaps madness. In the fragile moments of that encounter, paths weaved together and tore apart, illustrating the bond that made them brothers, yet also the fractures that had pushed them apart. Silence licked at the edges, an intense stillness pregnant with unanswered questions. Each gaze carried the burden of choices and consequences, lives forgotten in the dust of battle. "You stole a future that day," the brother said softly, a quiet storm brewing behind his eyes. "You turned from duty when I needed you most." A fist clutched his heart. The weight of the past bore down upon him. "I saw a man fall. I couldn't let him die." "No, you let me die," the brother stated, the accusation bitter as cold iron. The air crackled, as though even the cosmos held its breath, suspended between the clash of past grievances and the unraveling of what had been. An ocean of unshed tears surged within both of them, yet the divide remained, stretching wider with each unuttered word. They stood, locked in that timeless moment, shadows of who they once were and evolving into who they might yet become. As time slipped through their fingers, he felt the tremor in his bones, an echo of past pain intertwined with unbroken loyalty. The wind murmured secrets through the distance, but the only dialogue that mattered lay between them. "Can we find home within this chaos?" he asked, words barely above a whisper. "You don't know the meaning of home anymore," the brother replied, the weight of 1,000 sorrows suffocating. Yet in that shared darkness, a flicker ignited embers gathering into a flame, as remnants of love shone through cracks of despair. It was tentative, as if forging a connection anew required healing in the broken spaces. "What if we admit the truth?" he ventured. "Which one?" "The truth that we fell apart and still rose again." A flicker of recognition crossed his brother's face, though doubt still darkened the edges. "Stand with me," not against each other. That's the only way forward. As the night deepened, a tenuous bond reformed, stitched together by memories, wounds, and perhaps a whisper of forgiveness. The voices in the dark retreated, submitting to the growing light, the emergence of choices yet unmade. If you want to hear more tales of courage, love, and redemption amidst the shadows of history, subscribe to Medieval Stories and join us on this journey through the lives intertwined. The cold night air prickled against his skin, but it wasn't the chill that gripped him, it was the weight of their shared past, the palpable distance that stretched between them like a chasm too wide to bridge. Silence reclaimed the space, heavy with the burdens of forgotten promises. "Do you still hear the whispers?" the brother asked, voice barely a tremor above the wind, yet laden with gravity. "The echoes of what we used to be." A nod was all he could manage, the truth wrestling with the rawness of emotion pooling in his throat. "They haunt me every night," he admitted, his voice holding onto the threads of shame. "I see their faces, men I failed, and I ask myself daily what the cost was." "The cost to you or to us?" "There's no changing the past," the brother replied sharply, eyes glinting like steel under the moonlight. "Yet we stand here, don't we?" He stepped closer, defiance mingling with desperation. "Perhaps it's time to carry the weight together instead of in solitude." The hooded figure became a monument to their shared sorrow, standing stoically against the encroaching darkness. "And what then? Forgiveness? Forgiveness isn't just one-sided, it's a bond. An act requiring courage from both of us," he replied, taking in the pain that mirrored his own. "We've walked through hell together, and yet we turn our backs at the entrance. We owe it to ourselves to fight back against the shadows." Thunder rolled in the distance, a drumming cadence that mirrored the tumult within him. The air crackled, charged with uncertainty and hope. For years, they had avoided the reckoning that awaited them. To speak the unspeakable felt terrifying yet necessary. "What can be done now?" the brother asked, voice lower, almost vulnerable. "Begin with the truth of what happened," he said, allowing conviction to lace his words. "It was not cowardice, but a choice. And choices are intricate, complicated by love and fear." For a moment, he saw uncertainty flicker in his brother's eyes, like a flame fighting against the wind. "I stood for honor. You stood for humanity. I stood for survival. Can we not see how intertwined those choices are?" The brother's silence stretched, and the crackling shadows danced around them as if ghosts bore witness to their every word. "Survival at the cost of loyalty," he muttered, the words falling from his lips like heavy stones. "Isn't that the price of survival for all of us?" He felt the tension crackle between them, a brittle branch about to snap under weight. "We chose our paths in the heat of conflict, blind to the consequences." The wind howled around them, offering no comfort, yet in the tempest he felt something shift. An understanding was rising, tentative but undeniable, the same way the dawn always breaks after the darkest hour. "And yet, here we are, still alive," the brother finally said, voice softened. "Both of us. Can that count for something?" "It should count for everything," he breathed, the weight beginning to lift ever so slightly. "We are still brothers in blood, if not by choice." A silence stretched between them, profound and vast, and in that silence they began to explore the uncharted terrain of their hearts. "What if we laid down the past?" the brother implored quietly. "What if we chose to rise? Then we must admit the pain we caused each other, the misunderstandings that evolved into scars. he replied, taking a step closer, proximity softening the edges of betrayal. To confront that pain is to face our own ghosts. The brother looked away, attention lost in the flickering shadows. Do you think they will forgive us? Our brothers, our friends, they might not, he admitted. But this journey has always belonged to us. We can find forgiveness together. As uncertainty lingered in the canopies of their hearts, the clouds rolled away, revealing a sky choked with stars, each glimmer a witness to their reckoning. A hush swept through as they shared a moment, two souls tethered by the weight of history. Suddenly, a sound pierced the night, a horse's whinny and the rustle of hooves. The moment broke like glass underfoot, the brothers drawing back into shadows, an instinct born from survival. Who's there? The brother hissed, urgency infused in his voice. Before the question could be lost, a lone figure emerged from the encroaching dark, tall and intimidating against the night. The glint of metal caught the moon's sorrowful gaze. Who seeks the cursed night of this land? The stranger called, voice deep and heavy, resonating with authority. Friend or foe? The brother asked, each word tightened by the strain of the moment. I'm neither, the figure replied calmly, stepping into the flicker of light cast by a nearby campfire. The glint of steel revealed a badge adorned in tarnished gold. Sheriff, the brother breathed, recognition prickling against his skin. I am, the sheriff confirmed, casting a long shadow across the barren landscape. And we have much to talk about, all of us, do we? He challenged, instinct riding the wave of tension in the air. The town breathes stories of blood and bones, the sheriff replied steadily. You two stand on fragile ground. These matters must be settled. Then settle them. He felt a surge of defiance. Every man must face his truth. The sheriff regarded them with intensity as he lowered his voice, stepping closer, shrouded in darkness, yet staunch in purpose. This town holds many grudges. Grudges kept alive by choices made against fate and faith. You two must untangle this web. If we must, then where do we begin? The brother asked, turning toward him, uncertainty lurking like a ravenous beast. It starts now, the sheriff declared, resolution etched like finer lines across his brow. The world outside may be forgotten, but it remembers your ties, the bonds of brotherhood forged by fire, yet marred by choice. Together we'll begin stitching the fabric anew. As the night deepened around them, he felt the weight of impending choices resting heavily on their shoulders, yet amidst the unyielding darkness, the flame of reconciliation ignited for both brothers and perhaps for the town too. Acknowledging the shadows that lingered behind their eyes, he began to realize they weren't alone anymore in the sorrow of the past. The stories, the choices, the blood-soaked remnants of their history merged into an unbreakable thread, awaiting the dawn of a new beginning. If you're drawn to tales of redemption, courage, and the intricate weave of relationships, subscribe to Medieval Stories. Join us as we journey through centuries of history, exploring the lives of those who dared to break the silence of shadows. As the sheriff surveyed the brothers, the weight of their shared past enveloped the encampment, thickening the air with unspoken emotions. There's a reckoning waiting, and it lies beyond these woods, but it doesn't begin until you confront the ghosts of yesterday, he said, his voice steady as granite. I've spent too many nights haunted by them, the brother admitted, looking upward at the starlit sky, as if searching for answers among constellations long forgotten. Then perhaps it's time we face those who still breathe and live with their own ghosts, the sheriff urged, his eyes intent upon the brothers. This town carries memories like heavy drapery, veiling the truths you need to unearth. He felt the stirrings of conflict, emotions tangled like wood smoke weaving through the chill evening air. And if they refuse to listen, if the past has returned to claim hundreds of our shared losses, the sheriff's gaze hardened, a man forged in past trials. Then you speak louder. You shout your truths into the wind until every ear can hear it. The weight of silence only festers. Silence stretched, pregnant with their considerations. The enormity of what lay ahead loomed like dark clouds gathering in the distance, threatening to unleash fury upon them. "What do we say?" he asked finally, the question hanging stark like a pendulum. "The heart of the matter is honesty, your truth against what they deem the greater lie." The sheriff maintained an unwavering stance, his authority anchoring them against the fragility of their understanding. "You may find redemption for what you've lived through, but you must first confront each other, and then the town."
"Will it matter?" the brother challenged, his voice reduced to a croak.
"Will it absolve our actions, our choices? It could lead you to reconciliation, or it may simply break open the wounds," the sheriff replied. "But either way, the past is demanding to be addressed." "I don't fear the past," he declared, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "But I dread losing the present in the storm of what we've become. To lose a sense of self is a danger every man must reckon with," the sheriff warned, noting the brother's uncertainty. "But to lose the bond of brotherhood, that is a peril greater still. Remember who you are. This battle is not for survival, but for the restoration of who you were meant to be." The advice hung heavy, and as the weight settled in, they felt the pulse of shared history vibrating through the fabric of the night. "What if they shun the man I've become?" the brother asked, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "Then let them see the man you've chosen to be. Stand tall against their judgments. Otherwise, you may find your legacy tarnished more than it already is." With that, the sheriff turned, leading them down a path woven through remnants of forgotten campground fires and wild underbrush. As they walked, stepping carefully into the realm where past and present intertwined, he felt beads of sweat gather at the nape of his neck, urgency bubbling alongside dispersed remnants of fury. The forest around them thickened, trees arching as if bowing to unseen guardians of time. Shadows played tricks on their minds, twisting familiar figures into nightmares. And yet, he felt a flicker of resolve ignite within him, matching the pulse of the brother beside him. "You walk among spirits," the sheriff murmured as they neared the edge of town. "And you can either silence their voices or give them room to speak." As they crested a hill, the town of lost opportunities sprawled below like a tapestry of faded memories. Lanterns flickered, casting soft light upon the weary faces of townsfolk moving about, unaware of the reunion destined to unfold. "Time to make our presence known," the brother said, voice stronger now, resonating with a courage summoned through shared confrontation. Together they descended, each footfall a testament to their intentions, hearts thumping with the rhythm of hope and uncertainty. The atmosphere seemed charged, thick with possibilities that could either mend or shatter the fragile bonds that had come undone. As they entered the heart of the town, an invisible miasma of unspoken words hung heavily in the air. Shadows of old sins danced restlessly about them. Faces turned, eyes narrowing, whispers swirling through the community, familiar specters still lingering from days gone by. "Do you hear that?" he asked, straining to differentiate the rustle of wind from the beatings of expectation in his ears. "Let them talk. Let them whisper," the brother replied, a newfound determination sparking in the depths of his expression. "What matters now is what we say, what we choose to unveil." The two shared a resolute glance before stepping into the open square, where the townspeople gathered, seeking solace in the bright, flickering lanterns. They busied themselves with gossip and wary glances, holding judgments tight in their hearts. "Listen," the brother called out, voice rising above the murmur, commanding eventide confusion. "We've come home to confront our past, to reckon with the shadows of who we were." A hush fell upon the crowd, disbelief pooling in the shared air between scrutinizing eyes. "We owe you all explanations, and the truth," he continued, stepping forward, emboldened by purpose. "For too long, silence has woven a festering blanket about us, and today we choose to lay it bare." Uncertainty washed through the crowd like a tide threatening to pull them under, yet he pressed on, driven by an urgency fed by echoes from both the past and the future. "We once fought together, shared laughter, dreams, and blood. Our choices fractured bonds, but today we stand united against the weight of that history. We aren't here to hide or trade blame. We are here to share the burden of our actions." The unyielding faces remained impassive, but a flicker of recognition trickled into their expressions, as if darkness began slowly yielding ground to a rising dawn. "And what of our brothers lost?" a voice shouted from the back, raw with pent-up emotions cutting through the tension. "What of those you failed? Each name we lost haunts us daily, and for every choice made, we bear that weight still," the brother replied, his sincerity piercing through the barriers they had both erected over years. "But dwelling in despair is not our path. We've chosen to return and face what we've done together, and we hope to bear our truths to you now." A ripple of murmurs rolled through the crowd, questions and anger, simmering beneath the surface, colliding with the sincerity pouring forth from their hearts. "Witness our reckoning," he added, taking a step closer, emboldened by every breath and pulse that watched from the shadows. "Forgive us, or don't but know that we stand together now, striving for change." As the lanterns flickered, illuminating a scene once filled with retribution, the brothers took another step forward, poised against the shadows that had long encroached upon their lives. "Every story bears witness to a truth longing to be heard," the sheriff declared, moving to stand beside them. "Remove the weight of silence and pain. Conversations begin this night." With that, he felt the air transform. An electric current that pulsed with the collective struggles, hopes, and potential futures that lay before them. If you crave stories of change, healing, and the triumph of spirit over darkness, subscribe to Medieval Stories and walk with us as we traverse the labyrinths of history, uncovering tales marked by courage, love, and the bravery to reconcile with the past.